Welcome to the First Things First podcast. And first things first, we need you to subscribe and leave comments letting us know what you think of the show. We're listening. I'm Nick Wright, joined by two of my favorite people, Jenna Wolf, Chris Carter. Now, let's get the show started.
Oh, hey there. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. Chris Carter is going to join us live from Minneapolis in about an hour, site of the big game this Sunday. That is Nick Wright. That is Coach Eric Mangini. Now that we've got the names in place, how does everybody feel?
Great.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's exciting to be here.
It's our final football Friday of this season.
Yes.
We have a game between two number one seeds that we get to look at from every last angle.
Yes.
And we finally know this is a Super Bowl where there's no real is this guy going to play? Is he not going to play? Not a ton of injuries leading up to it. There was one big player who we weren't quite sure about that I know we're going to talk about. So we'll be able to have a fair analysis of it. I'm excited for it.
Everything that guy said. So thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys on Monday. No, you're right, Nick. 2 days before the Super Bowl, and the Patriots finally got the news they were looking for. They're going to start selling gluten-free food at Gillette next year. Also, Rob Gronkowski was cleared to play, but both equally really good news. We said today if Gronk wasn't cleared from concussion protocol, we would be concerned. Thankfully, he was, and he is ready to go. Gronk spoke with the media. Take a listen to this.
I was just going through the protocol, whatever the standards were, whatever they had me do throughout the weeks. I mean, I would say they were more on the cautious side of getting me out there right away with the bye week and everything in between, which definitely helped out big time. But just did every step by step every day, and everything went smooth. And officially got the word today that I was cleared. So it was super nice to hear from the doctors going through the whole process and ready to roll.
The next bite that they cut off was just him talking about gluten, but it was also equally important. What kind of an impact do you think Rob Gronkowski is going to have on Sunday, Nick?
An enormous one. He's the Patriots' most physically talented player. He's their second best player after Tom Brady. He's the best player in the whole league at his position. And against this particular Eagles team, this is a defense that's been outstanding all year long. One trouble spot for them has been athletic tight ends. Travis Kelce early in the year in a game the Eagles lost had a big game. Evan Ingram has had success against them in 2 games where the Giants had 400-plus yards of offense. You've seen this team with this position with guys that can have a physical advantage over Malcolm Jenkins, who's probably the guy who will be matched up on Gronk a lot of the game. They've had trouble with that.
Why?
I think Gronk gives everyone trouble, right? But for the Eagles in particular, I think a coach can probably speak to this better than me. However they work their defensive scheme, a true difference maker at that tight end position is a flex point for them. One spot where they give a little bit in order to take away maybe the other team's running game, the other team's number one wide receiver, whatever their bigger focal points are. So if the Patriots didn't have Gronk in this game, you look around and say, they are going to have to manufacture offense as opposed to, and I'm sure that'll still be part of the strategy, but we have seen the Pats in their biggest spots this year and in the last few years, break in case of emergency glass is Rob Gronkowski. We saw it against the Steelers. We saw it in the AFC Championship game they lost a few years ago. Gronk is their sometimes first and last resort, so it's enormously important he plays in this game, and he is now.
He changes the whole dynamic. And the thing with athletic tight ends, they do create coverage problems, but Gronk is a complete tight end. So you've got to make a decision defensively who you want to bring down there. So let's say you wanted to play a nickel defense and bring in a smaller defensive back to cover him, that's fine. But now you've got a little guy against a big guy who can block and block really effectively. It's not choosing either or with him. It's having to deal with that whole package. Then he allows those backs to work against the linebackers because they're not going to want to send the safeties out with the running backs. When they motion out of the backfield, they've got to keep him in tight to deal with him, and that creates other matchup issues. It's a real issue for Philly.
When you talk about this game, which is interesting that we don't always talk about, is these are two teams that both have tight ends in Zach Ertz and Rob Gronkowski that have led their team in both receptions and receiving yards. A good deal of their offense goes through their tight ends. It's great that they have Gronk back, and on the other side they have Zach Ertz.
And so the Ertz is a different discussion almost in that what we have really seen, Ertz was great with Carson Wentz. since Nick Foles has gotten there, they have gone to him a disproportionate amount of time. The league's leader in target percentage was at 20%, meaning when he runs a route, he is targeted 20% of the time. Zach Ertz with Nick Foles has been nearly 25%. He has been the security blanket times 5. Brady won't have to do that with Gronk, and the Patriots will never just totally skew one part of their offense to their best player. They'll skew it more to the best matchup, right? Like they will look at what we saw in the Super Bowl last year. It's not like James White's the best player on their team, but they said, oh, okay.
In this matchup,
and I wonder how much of James White's success was maybe because of the way the Falcons were trying to guard some of the other dynamic players on the Pats.
Well, the thing that's different here, too, is New England's going to take away Zach Ertz. So the fact that it's going to him a disproportionate amount of time, they're not going to give Nick Foles that luxury. They're going to force him to go somewhere else with the ball. New England and Tom Brady are used to operating with or without Gronk. It's not like he's had to rely on Gronk. The fact that he's there is an added bonus, but they've been very effective without him. He just creates additional problems for a defense where the Zach Ertz equation, as you said, it's a safety net,
right,
but they're going to take that safety net away.
The point that you made about if you want to go to nickel, if you want to put, typically what we see, so say that if you're playing the Seattle Seahawks, very often a team will just say, we're going to treat Jimmy Graham like a wide receiver. We're going to put a corner on him and try to guard him that way. And that can sometimes be effective. When the Patriots were going up against the Jags, I postulated, would you just put Jalen Ramsey on Gronk? He's your best corner. He's your most physically imposing corner. That's their biggest weapon. And Chris and you, I think, said, you can't do that because the Patriots will look at that and say, okay, you want to have three corners on the field? We will just check to a run and let Gronk block you. That's one of the reasons he's so difficult, because he can, if you put your best coverage guy on him, the Patriots will just switch to a running play and you utilize the fact that he might be the league's best blocking tight end as well as the league's best receiving tight end.
And that's what I don't think people appreciate. A lot of times when you go into the draft, you've got two types of tight ends. You've got the receiving tight end and you've got the blocking tight end, and very rarely do you get both. But with Gronkowski, he's such a threat in the passing game, but he is a force in the running game, and they'll use him a significant amount in protection, too. There'll be times where he's getting double-teamed, and he's staying in to protect for Tom Brady, to chip on the defensive line, which opens up a ton of other options outside because you just don't have enough numbers to do all the things you want to do.
Wait, go ahead.
No, I just want to for the audience's sake, in the last 5 years, there have been 3 playoff games where Gronk was targeted at least 10 times. What do they all have in common? They were the closest games the Patriots have played. It was the loss to the last playoff game the Pats lost, the AFC Championship game against Denver, where Gronk famously had the 4th and 10 catch over the middle to get him down in scoring range, then I believe scored what could have been the game-tying touchdown, but they didn't get the 2-point conversion. It was the Super Bowl against Seattle, where he had 10 targets, a game the Patriots had to come back. It was a divisional playoff game against Baltimore that they won 35-31, a very close game where he had 13 targets. In their biggest spots, they find a way to get their best player the ball. They don't. I know you didn't like my theory that the Patriots early in the year are cautious with Gronk. I still wholeheartedly believe that, but they will not be. They certainly will not be cautious with him in this game. If they need to, they'll go to him a lot. They don't always need to, but in the biggest spots throughout, I mean, we've seen it. I remember the last Super Bowl the Patriots lost. What was the last throw of the game? It was a Hail Mary that Gronk almost caught. Like, they consistently, in big spots, go to, as most teams would, their most talented, their best player.
All right, so the Patriots do have Gronk back. Before we move on, you just said something. We talked all week about who the Patriots are going to sort of nullify on the Eagles' offense. We couldn't come up with one play, but maybe it is because of those numbers. Maybe it is Zach Ertz, and once you take Zach Ertz out, now they're forced to really scramble and figure something else out on offense. Yeah,
they want to make Nick Foles have to go to a second and third decision. And all anybody's talked about is how quickly he gets the ball out, how effective he's been since he's been able to do that. And when you start taking away those options and those places where he's really comfortable, now he's got to play left-handed, and that's always the strategy.
And only one tight end all year has even gotten 70 yards on the New England Patriots. So they've been very effective at taking away tight ends throughout the year. I think Coach is right. They will make sure Zach Ertz is not the guy to beat them on Sunday.
It is the Friday before the Super Bowl. Time for us to break down every angle, but especially the ones that people care about. Nick Foles playing in just his 3rd ever playoff game, trying to take down Tom Brady, who is Who's Tom Brady? He's looking for a 6th Super Bowl win. Both quarterbacks spoke about the challenge ahead.
You know what? I don't know what the feelings will be like. I know at that moment it'll be, it's the Super Bowl. So I know the only time I'll feel it are in that moment. So I'm excited to just run out of the tunnel with my teammates, Super Bowl Sunday, and play that game. I have no idea what I'll feel. I know it'll be a lot of excitement, but I look forward to that moment.
There's time to adjust, but every possession is going to be critical, and it's going to come down to the execution, as it always does. And if you're in a position to win at the end, you got to take advantage of it. And if you don't, then it's going to be a pretty crappy Sunday.
We should keep in mind that Tom Brady has done Super Bowl pregame interviews for 7 years. Like, he's done 7 other ones. Poor Nick Foles, his first time there with more people than have ever asked him questions. So he's just trying to formulate thoughts and sentences and put it all together.
It felt like it was his first time.
Okay. Okay. Well,
He was just kind of just talking, just stream of content.
As Nick
That's
said,
fine,
it was
though.
great. He's just saying words.
He's just saying words.
At
He doesn't
this
really know what they
point.
mean. He's like, you guys, someone else asked me a question,
And I'll
please.
just say more words. All right, let's break this down a little bit. Coach, in your opinion, what is the key to this game?
Well, look, I wish there was one key, but as you go through this, it's got to be Philadelphia not having self-inflicted wounds. When you look at the game against Atlanta, they really survived that game, even though they had 2 turnovers and 2 significant turnovers. Then there was the play where they fumbled the ball forward. Nick Foles dives on it in the end zone. That could have been completely changed the dynamic of the game as well. So New England's
play
not,
at the end of the first half.
Yeah,
where that was the worst pass Nick Foles has thrown all year. Hits, I forget who it hit in the hands, but whoever it was, he ends up kneeing the ball back to a Philadelphia Eagle,
yep.
and they ended up getting a field goal out of it. They had a lot. They fumbled 4 times in that game. They only lost 2 of them.
They lost 2. One ended up in a touchdown, which that rarely happens.
They had a bunch of opportunities to lose that football game via self-inflicted wounds, and they got away with it. But go ahead.
And that's the one thing that New England does really well, and that's a starting point in the NFL. More games are lost than they're won in the NFL, and New England doesn't beat themselves. They don't get into a situation where that's the difference in the game. They're going to force the other team to play really well to beat them, and Philadelphia had that really sloppy game against Atlanta that they survived. They cannot get into that situation against New England.
I 100% agree with you that the key to Philadelphia staying in the game is not having self-inflicted wounds, not allowing the Patriots to exploit what the Patriots seem to exploit in almost every game they play, which is the other team's just going to make some mistakes for you. Just pick them up and you don't make mistakes yourself. That's the key to me to Philadelphia is staying in the game. The key to if Philadelphia is going to actually be able to win the game is it is the thing we have talked about all week, and the reason we've talked about it all week is it's the most important aspect of the game, at least in my eyes, which is can the Eagles' defensive line, most notably the interior of that defensive line, Fletcher Cox, and they're right now a little ill, but he'll play Timmy Jernigan, can they get a push up the middle? Because the push off the edge is one thing that's going to take longer to get there. Brady can step up in the pocket and usually still get the ball away. But if your D tackles, most notably Fletcher Cox, who's one of the best in the world at what he does, if he can dominate his matchup against Patriots center, Patriots right or left guard, if he can dominate that matchup and get pressure there, that's a way the Eagles can actually win the game. A play that I always think of when you think about how did the Patriots lose these Super Bowls, the 2 that they've lost. It's the helmet catch, sure, the Mario Manningham catch. How about the play where Tom Brady got called for intentional grounding in his own end zone against the Giants when it was bizarre because he threw it down the middle of the field, but there was so much pass rush on him, Brady threw the ball away seemingly prematurely. That set the template for that entire game. And so that to me is an enormous key to if the Eagles are going to be able to win.
And that's going to be it, and that's what you want to talk about is how this Philadelphia defense as a whole is going to deal with the Patriots offense, because on paper the Patriots offense is who's going to go out there and pretty much win this game. We know that already. Their defense becomes their question mark. So talk about how this Philadelphia Eagles defense can pretty much do this.
Well, one of the things that in dealing with Tom Brady is always the pre-snap read, and I go back to this over and over again. In every single coverage, there's a beater. There's something that can beat it, and every route has that beater built in. And Tom and the Patriots do a great job of gathering pre-snap information, identifying what the coverage is, and then going to the right spot. I want to show you an example from the Minnesota game of gathering information. And in what you see here is they're motioning to empty. So Jerick McKinnon is coming out, and of the backfield, Michael Kendricks is coming out with him. So that gives you the information. It gives you man-zone answers. And right now, you know it's man-to-man because you've got a linebacker on a back out in space. What's going to happen is McKinnon's going to run in, sell that he's running a shallow cross, and then come back out. Up top, you can see that Philly's doubling Kyle Rudolph. When you've got Gronkowski back, he's going to get that type of coverage. He's going to get two guys dedicated to him, which means the linebacker now is isolated out here in space. Minnesota doesn't throw it to him, but here's a good example of small versus big. That change of direction, that ability for the linebacker to put his foot in the ground and come back out, it's difficult, especially in a lot of space.
Wow.
They don't go to him here, but they could have easily gone to him here. And Tom is going to go to those backs. He's going to work those backs. And Gronkowski coming into the mix pushes coverage to him, which means those backups or those back matchups are more viable than ever.
So that's a play that obviously I watched, and I remembered Adam Thielen slamming his helmet. I had no idea they'd missed a touchdown. Like that was, I didn't see the Jerick McKinnon thing that you pointed out, and that's so interesting because what the Patriots have shown you in their last two Super Bowl wins, like I'll just read it to you right now. Last year, who led the team in catches? Remember, Gronk was out. It wasn't Danny Amendola. It wasn't Julian Edelman, who's obviously out for this one. It was James White, a running back, coming out of the backfield. The previous Super Bowl that they won, who led the team in catches? It wasn't Julian Edelman. They had Gronk in that game. It wasn't him. It was Shane Vereen. It was in consecutive Super Bowls. What they have seen is, I would imagine, a lot of things like that. Brady puts a guy in motion, maybe goes no huddle so you can't sub. Sees, all right, you're in man-to-man. We are going to have an edge in our quick, smaller guy against your bigger linebacker or your bigger safety, whomever it is, and we are going to exploit it, even if it's 6-7 yards at a time.
But that's also the great thing about what New England does and why they've had such consistent success and why Tom is so good is there's an unselfishness to this approach. It's not about going, hey, I've got to get my playmakers the ball. I've got to make sure this guy's happy or that guy's happy. You don't have that. All that matters is, are you open? Are you in the right spot? And are you open? And where does the coverage dictate that you go with the ball?
But that also plays into the fact that Tom Brady doesn't need to feel comfortable with a certain receiver. A lot of these quarterbacks, they feel so comfortable with one guy or another guy that they force things in. Tom Brady, as you've seen, will go anywhere with who's ever open. Yeah, he's got guys he feels more comfortable with. But as you can see, there are so many different games where so many different guys come out of this as your leading receiver.
And the great thing there is it's a meritocracy. Everybody knows if they're out there and they're playing and they're in the right spot and they're doing the right thing, they've got a chance to get the ball. They've got a chance to make plays. And that's not the case with every team. It's very, very different and hard to do.
And so I think some people might hear that and see that and wonder, well, then why wouldn't you just play a lot of zone against the Patriots? Like, so you don't give away who's on who. So, and if I'm correct, it's one of the reasons the Patriots like guys like Danny Amendola. They like guys that maybe aren't the biggest or the most blazing fast is because so good with precise route running and finding the exact soft spot in the zone. And Brady looks at the zone defense and says, okay, like there's that pocket's there, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I can't stress this enough. If Tom knows what you're in pre-snap, there is a beater in that route that he's going to get to, so you've got to disguise, you've got to move around, you've got to change things up. You can't give them the same thing over and over again because they're going to go, they're going to talk about it, and they're going to get the ball in the right spot. So you better mix it up or it's a long day.
Finally, Aaron Rodgers seems a little annoyed at the Packers front office. This after the team decided to make a move at quarterback coach without talking to him first. Rodgers said, quote, well, I thought that was an interesting change, really, without consulting me. So, CeCe, how big a deal is changing quarterback coaches without Aaron Rodgers' consent, and how big a deal is his unhappiness at this point in his recovery process?
Well, we know, as broadcasters with Fox, that we have certain people on the staff within the organization that personally work with us. Now, we probably have attachments to certain members of the staff who do more work with us, help us with our information. And if they were to leave and you didn't have any type of knowledge of it or you couldn't stop it or anything, like, we would be very upset. Now, as a quarterback, if your offensive coordinator is not the head coach, which, you know, in Green Bay, we know that they've had some, you know, who's going to call the plays, who's not going to call the plays. I think this is criminal. You have one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. What would it take just to call him and ask him, Aaron? Well, no, forget asking him. Aaron, we're getting ready to make a change at quarterback coach. Is there anyone that you might think be interested? Or these are the 3 coaches that I'm interested in. Do you know any of these guys?
Well, Cece, what about calling him and saying, we want to make the change?
What do you think?
Should we?
Yeah.
Like, I understand.
Well, no. If you've decided to fire the guy,
but my question is
you've
this,
already decided to fire him.
Why would you decide to fire him if Aaron Rodgers likes him? I understand that with a coordinator or a head coach, even a player such as Aaron Rodgers cannot dictate that. You told me Eli Manning doesn't get to pick his coach when Ben McAdoo went there. I understand that. But the quarterback's coach, there's only one quarterback on Green Bay that matters. It's Aaron Rodgers. He likes the quarterback's coach. There's no reason to believe it's not like, well, Aaron Rodgers hasn't reached his potential. He's playing as well as any quarterback ever.
Right.
Why would you even make this move if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want you to?
Who is the head coach of Green Bay Packers?
Say it again?
Who's the head coach of Green Bay Packers?
Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy has coached more quarterbacks than Aaron Rodgers has had good coaches. So Mike McCarthy is a quarterback coach, offensive coordinator. So there's no need to tell Aaron, but I am going to inform him as far as the organization and how we're going to move forward. Because I believe a lot of the stuff, Mike McCarthy, he has done it in the past, and he can take on some of that burden because he's calling the plays in Green Bay.
So to be clear, because you said no reason to tell him, you're saying there's no reason to ask his permission, but you've got to run by him.
You don't know. The National Football League, not about that. I don't care how good the players are. Peyton Manning, I don't care. Tom Brady. If I'm deciding to fire a guy as the head coach, no, I don't have to go to the star to tell him that.
Let me ask you this, though, Cece. When you were at the Vikings, if they were changing wide receivers coaches, they wouldn't ask your blessing for it? I understand not head coaches or coordinator, but wide receivers coach, they wouldn't. No? Wow.
No, Denny Green, I had a job, all right? Run the locker room. He ran the team, okay? I ran the locker room. He ran the team.
Okay.
He controlled the coaches. He controlled the personnel. And there wasn't a time that we had a relationship that he didn't make that very, very clear.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Would not have thought that.
Yeah, me neither. That's fine.
All right, back to the New England Patriots. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes things are better with a friend by your side. Look at Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Together, they're headed to their 8th Super Bowl. Together, they won 223 games since Brady took the reins in the 2001 season. And together, they have made owner Bob Kraft a very happy and a very rich man. Bill Belichick spoke glowingly about his quarterback earlier in the week.
Well, there's no quarterback I'd rather have playing for my team than Tom Brady, so glad I have him.
You didn't expect like more than an 8-second sentence.
That was about as loving as you get from one Bill.
That was a ton. Yeah. That might as well have been a Hallmark card. Nick, let me start with you. Do you think this could be Brady and Belichick's last game together? Forget Super Bowl, but just last game together as we move on to next season?
All right, so that would mean either Brady or Belichick are either retired or somewhere else next year. So we know that Brady is not retiring and that Brady is not going anywhere. So you can remove him from the equation. I feel like we know that Bill Belichick's not retiring. So then the only option left is, could Bill Belichick be somewhere else next year? Could he be? I don't think you can say it's 0%. And the reason I don't think you can say it's 0% is we would not know. We do not know, I should say, how bothered Belichick is by everything that's gone down the last few weeks. From the Seth Wickersham report up to what we discussed yesterday, which was Jonathan Kraft, saying Brady's going to be done when he wants to be done. I mentioned at the end of the show yesterday, power is a zero-sum game. And when one person gains power, that person being Tom Brady, someone has to have lost it. That would have been Bill Belichick. My guess is that overall he's very happy where he's at. But the reason I say we wouldn't know his happiness level is Belichick's not going to let anything distract him or the team from the objective at hand, which is winning the game Sunday. Now, if he is really bothered by this, he will have endless options. So could this be their last game together? I'm not going to say there's no chance. I think it's very small, but yeah, I think this could be their last game together, depending on how much Bill Belichick cares that the paradigm has shifted slightly from him, as Cece mentioned, totally running the team like Denny Green did, to him running all facets of the team except for his star quarterback.
I think this is a non-issue. I think there's 0% chance that this is their last game. You said if Bill Belichick won it, but he doesn't want to. I don't believe what you said, that there's endless options, because there's not owners that would just give him carte blanche. There's not teams that he could just take over and fill it with a staff. He can't change the personnel department. He can't change the way they do things just overnight. It has taken him almost 20 years to build the business of the New England Patriots. He can't go anywhere else. He can't run that system just anywhere. It's just like the greatest people at doing something, we always try to find them another job. Nick Saban, every month, he's going somewhere else to Alabama. No, these guys are icons in their business, and they've had failure at other places. They realize this is the best path for them to victory. They're doing what they want to do. Both of them are at the height of their profession. When are we going to stop doing this from a media standpoint? These people are not quitting. You don't become these type of iconic figures and just walk away from football. This is their life. This is their contribution. They are teachers. Where else can they teach football like this? If they were educators, if they were professors, they would be teaching at graduate school. What is graduate school? That is Alabama. That is the New England Patriots. So I think this is a non-issue. I think Tom Brady and Bill Belichick get the opportunity to win a couple more Super Bowls, and I'm looking forward to watching them.
Go ahead, Gina.
But Nick, don't you think that even with all this off-field kind of conversation about what's happening, and there's maybe a little dissension in the ranks and maybe who's really in charge and whatnot, don't you think all three are better off with all three in place?
Oh, yeah,
don't you think Brady is
absolutely.
at his best with Belichick, and Belichick is at his best with Robert Kraft? And all three of them need all three of them in place for this machine to work. So we can dance around and assume that maybe this one, this. But if all three aren't in place, this isn't the same product as if they go elsewhere.
I agree, and I don't think anyone's going anywhere. The point that I'm trying to make is that if Belichick were furious, just broiling with anger about the Garoppolo thing, we wouldn't know it. Like, Belichick is amazing at staying focused at the task at hand. So I agree with Chris that this is, I didn't put it at 0%, so I guess I don't 100% agree with Chris. But for the most part, there's no reason to believe this is their last game. The point that I'm making is with most guys, take the guy we talk about all the time in the NBA, with LeBron. When LeBron's upset about something, we know it. He's subtweeting. He's saying weird quotes. Like, Belichick's the opposite. He's not letting any distractions come into place. I want to talk about one other side of this with you, Cece, before we move on. And that is how amazing it is that Tom Brady, who's 40 years old and he's favored to win his 6th Super Bowl on Sunday, that the discussion about Brady retiring does not exist. That Brady has made it so clear to the world, I can keep playing at this level. I want to keep playing at this level.
And I will keep
playing at this level. That the idea that he's going to do the John Elway and walk out on top, it does not exist. It existed more last year going into that Super Bowl. It was at least a bit of a question. Could Brady retire if he finally breaks Montana and Bradshaw's 4 Super Bowl record? This year, he has made it clear through his documentary, through his own marketing stuff, and through his level of play, he has no interest in walking away. It's amazing that he has essentially rendered that storyline moot.
Last year, it was not on the board. That was a media-created question. Like, if there's no question that he's not going to walk off at the Super Bowl 52, well, how in the heck do we think that after being suspended for the start of his 16th season and then culminating with coming back from 28-3, that it would be on the board? Like, this is all just stuff created. He has told us, and he's been telling us for 3 years. He just didn't just start with the TB12, the Tom versus time. Tom Brady has been saying this for 3 years, that he wanted to play until his mid-40s. His wife admitted it a couple times, and Tom Brady's been consistent about it. We just keep trying to get Tom to do something else. But Tom is doing what he's called to do, and that's pick up them Lombardi trophies.
Back here on First Things First, we're going viral. Tom Brady's the favorite to win his 3rd regular season MVP award, and one staffer might have already given that away. Check out this guy seen with a paper with the words Brady acceptance speech at the top. Is that good preparedness or is that a little tacky?
I mean, that is, do you remember? Oh, gosh. Chris Kobach was interviewing with President Trump to do that voter fraud commission, and he walked into the room with, like, his entire proposal out and people photographed it. That what I would say is slightly more sensitive than the Brady acceptance speech.
Why not even have a cover page? How about a cover page?
Cece, I just have to ask you this real quick. If the MVP winner, though, has not been informed yet, correct?
Yes, I think they've been informed.
Oh, so Brady would, if he did win the MVP, he knows, we just don't know.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Course.
All right. Well, then
yes.
I just thought Brady was covering all his bases.
Let me just see how he starts.
What?
And honored to be so obvious.
Associated Press MVP award. That's what that next line is.
I hope they can give me the Hall of Fame list like that. I'll keep it a secret.
Maybe he was put in a folder, a backpack or something. A big gust of wind, and this guy's speech is all over Minneapolis.
It's unbelievable.
All right. So the truth is, CC, thank you. Anyone going up against Tom Brady would pale in experience. Brady has won 27 playoff games. Nick Foles has won 24 total games. Brady is looking for his 3rd Super Bowl win in 4 years. Nick Foles is looking for his 3rd playoff win in 4 games. When Brady won his first Super Bowl in 2002, Nick Foles had just turned 13 years old. Foles spoke about the quarterback matchup right here.
You know what? I don't know what the feelings will be like. I know at that moment it'll be, it's the Super Bowl. So I know the only time I'll feel it are in that moment, so I'm excited to just run out of the tunnel with my teammates, Super Bowl Sunday, and play that game. I have no idea what I'll feel. I know it'll be a lot of excitement, but I look forward to that moment.
There's time to adjust, but every possession is going to be critical, and it's going to come down to the execution, as it always does. And if you're in a position to win at the end, you got to take advantage of it, and if you don't, then it's going to be a pretty crappy Sunday.
Cece, who's got more on the line here for Sunday, Tom Brady or Nick Foles?
I think it's easy to say Nick Foles because he really doesn't have a legacy. And if he was able to win Super Bowl 52, potentially be the MVP of Super Bowl 52. But even if Nick Foles wins, it's not a story that we haven't seen. We have seen backup quarterbacks. They've won a number of Super Bowls. Like, who are these people as far as NFL history? They're just subplots. Tom Brady has more to lose than Nick Foles. We've seen people like Nick Foles do that. We've never seen a Tom Brady. We've never seen anyone actually win 6 championships. We talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers. The organization owns 6. Tom would have 6 himself. His ability to continue playing at a high level, to defy the critics, to defy my good friend Nick Wright. And Tom Brady said in the TB12, 40 is the new 25. So Tom Brady has the most to lose.
See, so I vehemently disagree with you on this. I would have agreed last year. Last year, Brady was going to try to become the first quarterback ever with 5. And last year, Brady Montana, even though I thought Brady had already superseded him, Brady Montana was still a real debate. And Montana with 4 championships, Brady with 4 championships. And so last year, I thought Brady had an enormous amount on the line. It was to cement himself as the greatest quarterback, I should say, ever. But what did we discuss all last week? Tom Brady's obviously the greatest quarterback ever. Is he the greatest football player ever? Is he the greatest American athlete ever? Is he the greatest team sport athlete ever? Brady has so little to gain because he's already gained so much. Now, obviously, they both have a Super Bowl to gain, but I'm talking about legacy-wise. Nick Foles, on the other hand, if he loses this game and then goes back to being Carson Wentz's backup, he is a footnote to a footnote of history. Like, oh, yeah, remember that time the Eagles, when they made the Super Bowl, they had McNabb. Then who was the guy the other time? But if he wins this game, he's never going to be a Hall of Famer. He's never going to be able to do what you're doing, which is Super Bowl week, have people lining up to meet him. Hey, I'm at this I'm at this hat place. I'm doing this. But what he could be is the guy to bring Philadelphia's first Super Bowl championship. A guy that has a legacy forever in one of America's best and most passionate sports cities. That is only achieved by winning this football game. So if it were Brady versus a more accomplished quarterback, like Brady versus a Breeze, it's to me a different type of discussion. But for Foles, if he's going to have a legacy, let me put it like that, the only way Nick Foles has a legacy in this league is if he wins this game Sunday.
But we're not even sure, CC, that if Nick Foles wins the Super Bowl, he becomes a starter somewhere. He could win the Super Bowl, go back to being Carson Wentz's backup, and he might still be a footnote with an exclamation mark of a guy that won the Super Bowl, but he became a career backup after that.
Listen, we have seen players like Nick Foles before. And I don't believe if he wins the game that he's some superhero, iconic figure in Philadelphia. I believe the Philadelphia fans, they realize what this team is. And they had trepidation when Nick took over. They know that. And they know that you weren't all the way wrong when you said that they didn't have any chance. They had a slight chance. But in having Nick Foles as the quarterback, they have been able to see how strong this roster is. So I think the players that have been there the longest, players like Fletcher Cox, players like Malcolm Jenkins, players like Jay Ajayi, these players will have an opportunity because they are the frontline players for this organization. So I believe Nick Foles is like Hostetler and other backups that won a Super Bowl. He's a part of history, but he doesn't have a great legacy.
Man, the thing is, though, if Hostetler had delivered the Giants their first Super Bowl championship ever, it's a different situation. I do not think you can be the quarterback for the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, something that's never been said, and become a footnote to history. Jenna, I think he can win this game and still be Carson Wentz's backup, still be a career backup. That's why. Go ahead,
Nick,
CC.
A good friend of mine, Brad Johnson, won the first Super Bowl for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Dexter Jackson was the MVP with the interception. Brooks had the big game defensively, touchdown. Warren, Sapp, even Keyshawn Johnson on the offensive side. John Lynch on the defensive side. All these other guys took more of the limelight and gone on to. Now, Brad is very, very comfortable in who he is as a person. And I'm sure that Brad would allow me to be able to
you're not
explain
disrespecting
this.
him.
Excuse me?
I said I'm agreeing with you. You're not disrespecting him. Go ahead. Yeah.
But Nick Foles, like we've seen this. My friend Trent Dilford, he led the Baltimore Ravens with their great defense. But everybody after the game, they took credit away from the quarterback, and that's what's going to happen if the Eagles are able to win this Super Bowl.
Here's and this is the last point I'll make. There's a reason we recognize the name. You obviously recognize Brad Johnson because he's a friend of yours and you played with him. But for the average fan, the reason that Trent Dilfer's name rings and David Garrard's doesn't is the Super Bowl. One wasn't much better than the other. The reason we know Brad Johnson's name, but not Steve Bono, was that one game. Again, it doesn't make you a Pantheon guy. It doesn't make you a Hall of Famer for your team. But you do have there is the Q rating, if you will, the notability of, that guy did go do that. There's a lot of guys that could have won a Super Bowl for Ray Lewis's Ravens other than Trent Dilfer. But Tony Banks was the quarterback that year. He got benched for Trent Dilfer. If it had gone the other way around.
This is Super Bowl. I believe Tom's going to get 7 Super Bowls. So I believe this is number 6 on the way to 7.
Welcome back to First Things First. It's time for Fantasy vs. Reality, sponsored by DraftKings. I said it with oomph.
I liked it. I was smiling.
Oh, I was like selling it. It's the game inside the game.
Well done, Jenna Wolf.
Thank you so much.
It's the best read I've ever heard.
Now you always go just a little too far. All right, Nick, you've got 4 offensive players, 2 defensive players in your lineup for the big game Sunday. Take us through your team.
All right, I'm going to start with, I would say, the most obvious one, the most expensive player you can get, but he's worth it, Tom Brady. Remember, he threw for 466 yards in last year's Super Bowl. Tom Brady is my first offensive player.
Look for him to have a high completion rate, Nick. He knows that front seven's coming after him, so look for him to get rid of the ball quick. A lot of completions in Super Bowl 52.
And in the last Super Bowl, you know who Tom Brady completed the most passes to? My next pick, James White. James White had 14 receptions last year. I don't expect him to have 14 this year, but I think at $8,100, he's good value. Plus, I hear he had a really good high school coach, if I'm not mistaken, so I like James White in this one.
James White he had a great high school coach and other coaches around him, but James White is a big game player. And in this game, I don't think New England's going to be able to run the ball, so they will utilize their running backs. Him and Dion Lewis will be used in this game out of the backfield more as receivers than runners.
By the way, Chris Carter was his high school coach. All right, another skill position player, Jay Ajayi for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to have to run the football to have any shot in this game. I think Jay Ajayi is going to get 20 carries or so. I like Jay Ajayi this Sunday on DraftKings.
I like Jay Ajayi so much, Nick. He potentially can be the MVP of Super Bowl 52.
Oh, wow.
That offensive line running off that left side. Check it out now. Potential MVP candidate.
That's a take now. All right, and then last offensive player, Gronk. Cleared concussion protocol. Doesn't need much commentary here. Very expensive at $12,400. Worth it. In big games, the Patriots feature their best player.
And this is a great matchup, Nick, because no one has covered the tight end, I think, worse than the Philadelphia Eagles, giving up a passing rate, and I think over 100. So good pick right there.
All right, now to the defensive side of the ball. Friend of the show, an all-around great guy who's playing for free this year, Chris Long, one of the fresh pass rushers for Philadelphia and a guy with Super Bowl experience. I expect him to have at least 1 sack in this football game, so I like Chris Long. And the other defensive player I like, Timmy Jernigan. They're going to be double-teaming Fletcher Cox, so I like Chris Long and Timmy Jernigan as my 2 defensive players, CC.
Tim Jernigan definitely has a potential to be one of those unsung heroes. You see big game, you talk about a lot of the people. That penetration in the middle is critical. But there's some kind of way, man, that I just see Chris Long, Howie's son, getting some type of strip sack at a critical moment in the game.
Wow, there you go. That's a very precise prediction. I like it, CC.
All right, very nice team, boys. For the first time ever, you can play for DraftKings for free this Sunday and be in the running for the $1 million in prizes. Use promo code FS1 when you download and sign up for free. That's right, you can still play fantasy football even if it's just one game, so use promo code FS1 to play for free with DraftKings, the leader in one-day fantasy football. All right, time now for drawing a blank. Let us break down the receivers. The Eagles led by Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith, while Danny Amendola, Brandon Cooks, and Rob Gronkowski highlight the Patriots receiving corps. CC, the leading receiver in the Super Bowl will be blank.
There's a number of guys to pick. It would be easy to pick Amendola, especially with Gronk being a little nick, Gronk being cleared protocol. It'd be easy to pick him. But Brandon Cook, the guy they traded for in New Orleans, their biggest deep threat, I look for them to try to go after Ronald Darby, the cornerback for Philadelphia. Brandon Cook has the most receiving yards in Super Bowl 52.
I'm going with one of those easy picks, CC. I'm going with Rob Gronkowski. He's the best player on the field. You mentioned Philadelphia has struggled, particularly against athletic tight ends. I watched Travis Kelce beat him up early in the year in a game the Philadelphia Eagles lost. I like Rob Gronkowski to have the most receiving yards in Super Bowl 52.
Okay, guys, moving on to the running backs. The Patriots will likely feature a two-headed attack of Dion Lewis and James White, while Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount lead the way for the Eagles. Nick Wright, the leading rusher in the Super Bowl, will be.
I might have given it away a bit with the DraftKings promo. I like Jay Ajayi in this spot. I think New England has shown you in Super Bowls in the past, they are comfortable throwing the ball all the time. Now, they'll throw it to the running backs, but not a ton of rushing plays. Philadelphia has to run the football to have a shot in this game. I think Jay Ajayi is their best running back. I think Jay Ajayi is the best pick for most rushing yards in this football game.
Well, Nick, you're not the only one on the team that thinks that. Jenna and I, ever since the trade, we really thought adding him to the lineup was going to just increase that Philadelphia. And Jenna and I are Eagles fans, kind of at heart. We spend time in Philadelphia, unless when they're playing the Vikings.
Didn't they
Jay
fire
Ajayi,
you, CC?
Huh?
Didn't Philadelphia fire you? Now you're a Philadelphia fan. This is unbelievable. I'm always a man on an island on this show. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hey, Jenna, I got us covered. Jay Ajayi, potential MVP.
Right there, me and you, CC.
There you go.
All right, I love it. Next up, the guys not everybody sees coming. We're talking X factors. CC, the biggest X factor in the Super Bowl will be blank.
Malcolm Jenkins, the safety for the Philadelphia Eagles. He plays in the box in run support. He plays in coverage. He's all over the football field. His ability to be able to tackle in open space. New England likes this quick passing attack, so a lot of the pressure won't be on trying to cover him, but it will be getting the Patriots receivers on the ground. Malcolm Jenkins, X factor for the Eagles.
I believe the New England Patriots are going to double-team Fletcher Cox throughout this football game. That means his D-tackle cohort, Timmy Jernigan, who's a little sick right now, has a little bit of the stomach bug. Timmy Jernigan's the X factor in this game. They just signed him to a major extension after trading for him in the offseason. He's going to get single-teamed, I think, throughout this football game. He has to make plays up the middle for them to have a chance. I think Timmy Jernigan is the X factor in this football game.
All right, finally, Justin Timberlake makes his triumphant return to the Super Bowl halftime show. Why do I feel like something happened the last time he did that? I can't quite put my finger on it.
He put his finger on it.
Anyway, he did. Timberlake's first song during the halftime show will be blank, Nick.
Sexy Back. Why am I picking Sexy Back? Well, I checked the old Vegas odds. Seems like some of the bookmakers believe that there's a good chance Sexy Back's going to be the song. And I'm going to be totally honest with you, I can't name too many other Justin Timberlake songs.
Give us a few bars.
So I'm going to, no. I'm bringing Sexy Back, I believe, is the chorus line. I don't really know exactly the melodic feel to it, but I say Sexy Back will be the first song for one Justin Timberlake. CC?
Nick, you're not going to like this. You've been to my place in Tribeca. Justin Timberlake happens to be one of my neighbors. Saw him at one of the local eateries. Asked my man. Well, when he looked at me, he said, "Legend, respect." I said, "What song you singing?" He said, "Man, can't stop that feeling." Okay. Can't Stop That Feeling, going to be the first song.
Did he know
Hold
that?
on a second.
Wait a minute.
Wait. Yeah. Cece, if that's a true story, and you didn't tell me that prior to it being on national television, when I could have made thousands of dollars gambling on it, this is a true fracture in our friendship. So I am now going to illegally sports gamble.
You will bet on anything, and CC is surrounded by Justin Timberlake, Leonardo DiCaprio, and 55 other people.
Hashtag can't hide money.
I mean,
Good job,
honestly.
CC.
Back here on First Things First, Chris Carter is going to join us live from Minnesota in about 30 minutes. So in his place, another Chris is going to hang out with us. Chris Broussard. Chris, everything good?
Yes, everything is great.
Do you get excited for the Super Bowl as a guy so deeply ingrained in the basketball world?
Oh, yeah.
Still like...
I love football. Growing up was my favorite sport.
Oh, was it?
I wanted to be the next great tailback at USC.
Oh, yeah?
Obviously didn't happen.
Those plans got
playing
derailed.
Division III basketball, but...
Close. It's like a close.
Did you play high school football?
Yes, I played high school
both.
football all the way through.
That's funny because Chris's favorite sport growing up was basketball. Ended up playing football.
He was a great basketball player.
He was a very good basketball player.
Nick curled in high school,
That's
and
not
now
true. I lived in
he
Kansas City. There was no curling whatsoever. Just lying to America at 7:01 a.m.
The internet was ablaze yesterday by a report that LeBron James could consider the Warriors as a free agent destination this summer, or a vacation destination whenever. James has been famously tight-lipped about his impending decision and left all options on the table. The opposite of tight-lipped is Kevin Durant, who was asked about this report, and shockingly, he did not mince words.
But, you know, in this league, you know, just like a couple years ago, me coming here, nobody would have thought that. So it's part of me as a basketball player that's just like, let's just worry about basketball. And then on the other side, we know this is a business as well, and a lot of crazy things have happened since I've been in the league, and even when years in the future is going to be even crazier things that's going to happen. So I just want people to enjoy what really goes on in between the lines.
All right, Nick, what was your reaction to KD's comments?
Well, the first word was kind of contrary to everything else he said. The first word seems to dismiss it, and then he's like, but no one saw me coming here, and crazier things have happened, and
he
who
was
knows?
laughing when he said it, too.
And so one of our great producers, Brumley, brought up an interesting point. Do you remember when the initial report, I believe it was by Adrian Wojnarowski, came out that Kevin Durant could join the Warriors? They were at the time.
I had said it on our former network about in December, about a month before Woj.
Okay, so you said it when they were
I said
26-1,
yep.
or so it was, and I think Woj's story came out when they were like 37-4, and people looked at it like they said you were crazy. You know what I mean? They said what?
When I first was told it was a possibility in November, was told to sit on it, I thought it was nuts. But then the things I was told made me think, this actually could happen.
It could happen, and you started to realize, like salary cap-wise, they could make it work. This is Durant going to the Warriors. The only reason I bring it up is I would not find this drastically more shocking than I found that. That team had won 73 games. That team had won a championship. It would be more shocking, but once Durant, the reason I could not yesterday dismiss this out of hand is because I feel like I've learned that, to quote Kevin Garnett, I guess, anything is possible. Like any of those things are in play. Again, I want to make this very clear. I do not think LeBron James is going to sign with the Golden State Warriors. I do think he is aware of how fairly or unfairly it would affect his legacy.
It wouldn't be unfair.
I don't think
it wouldn't be unfair. When Kevin Durant, now, he got criticized. He took a lot of heat. I didn't kill him for it. This would be worse if LeBron went there. Number one, when Kevin Durant went there, they had only won one championship, and that one was highly controversial. Remember, Doc Rivers came out and said they got lucky. We were hurt.
Everyone they played was hurt.
Cleveland was hurt, lost 2 of their 3 stars. They were one of the most disrespected championship teams in recent memory. Then, in 2016, they lose. They did win 73, but they lose in the finals. They had talent, but it wasn't overwhelmingly the best talent in the league. They had no top 5 picks. They had a second-round pick as their 3rd star. So that would be much different. Going to that team would be totally different from a team that has become arguably one of the best ever.
So what do you think of what Durant said about the way he responded?
I was fine with it, because if I'm Golden State, I don't want to waste my time on this nonsense. The last thing I want to do is think about changing our team, particularly our core. And if I'm Golden State, I'm going to say it. LeBron James is the best player in the world. They don't need him. If I'm Golden State, I'm not even interested in him. If we win, assuming we do what everybody thinks we will, which is win the championship, handle.
But, Chris, when you reported it that year about Durant thinking about it, that team didn't think they needed Durant. That team
did, though. It showed that they needed him.
Right, but once the playoffs started.
Again, they didn't have the I could make an argument in 2016 that if you just lined up the Cavaliers on this side and the Warriors on that side, I could argue the Cavs have more talent. LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love versus Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. It's fit. It's chemistry. Basketball is not just about accumulating the most talent.
Of course, and I understand that argument, and I would probably agree with that argument in hindsight. But you got to realize in the moment the discussion was Steph's the best player in the world, not LeBron. Like in the moment, I
told one of the great basketball minds, who I'll leave unnamed, I asked him, has Steph surpassed LeBron? He laughed in my face.
Okay, that's
the defensive end.
Well, obviously. that guy's very smart, because Steph never surpassed LeBron.
There was talk.
It wasn't crazy to say Steph Curry is the best player in the world. I think a lot of people felt that. So again,
he had become the face of the league.
He became the face of the league. He was the most popular player in the world, and the discussion around the Cavs at that point in time was, oh my God, Cleveland's going to hate LeBron again. He's never going to win a title there. Like, because he had lost the previous year. The Warriors looked unstoppable headed into the playoffs with the 73 wins. Like, even midway through the finals, people were like, wait, the best years of LeBron were in Miami. He's never, and then that 3-game stretch changed everything. The only reason we're relitigating that is I just want people to remember how shocked they were. Maybe you weren't because
you're laying the groundwork for if LeBron were to go there so you don't kill him.
No.
Kevin Durant was never in discussions for the greatest player of all time. He was never in discussions that it was going to affect or taint his legacy in any way.
Oh, that last part's not true.
Okay, the way Kevin Durant was looked at is a lot different than the way LeBron James is looked at right now. Him going there doesn't nearly do as much for his reputation then as it would for LeBron James going to Golden State right now.
Listen, LeBron's not going to go to the Warriors, and I want to make this clear. I'm not trying to set the template for anything. I try to be consistent. I killed Durant for what he did.
So if LeBron were to go there, you would kill him?
Absolutely, because I don't think it's drastically different than the Durant situation, and I killed Durant. So I got to be fair. What I fear is, and what I think would happen is, a lot of people that gave Durant a pass, maybe some people sitting to my left, would then kill LeBron.
And I gave Durant a pass because I felt, in principle, it was similar to what LeBron did. But just like you said, Jenna, I hold LeBron James to a higher standard than anybody else in the NBA because you're better than anybody else in the NBA. And I think LeBron understands that, and that's why I don't think he would do this.
What do you think are the greater chances, and you talked about this earlier this morning, that LeBron stays in Cleveland or that he goes to Golden State?
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'd be more surprised if he went to Golden State. I think there's a better chance he stays in Cleveland. Look, he cannot, under any circumstances, if Golden State wins the title, go there. I mean, and even if they don't, it wouldn't look good. Like, this cannot happen. LeBron James said 2 days ago, I am not going to do more without Kevin Love. I do me. No matter who's on the court, I don't change my game. Why? Because LeBron James is a Batman. He's not a Robin. And if going to Golden State will be the ultimate Robin move. I have more faith in LeBron James's game. I have more faith in him as a competitor. And I think he has more faith in his game than to go join such a stacked team.
I agree.
mean, listen, if he didn't have enough faith in himself, then somebody on his team, Rich Paul, Maverick Carter, Savannah.
Right.
You need to be like, honey, no.
Not going to happen.
No.
Zuri, his daughter.
Exactly.
The latter part of that question, go to Golden State or stay in Cleveland. I think there is only one scenario that we're left with in which LeBron stays in Cleveland, and that's if they win the title. I don't see another way that this isn't LeBron's last year.
So would you
there.
I think the odds are he's leaving, but you actually think the odds are better of him going to Golden State?
No. Because I don't think he's going to Golden State. I just wanted to zero in on that part of it. I think going into this year, I did not think it was a foregone conclusion that LeBron was leaving Cleveland, and I don't think he thought it was a foregone conclusion that he was leaving Cleveland. I think it was on the board, absolutely. He was considering it. It's why he wouldn't opt into the deal. Yeah. There were a lot of reasons why he was certainly considering a lot of options, but there was some discussion as if LeBron has decided he's leaving. I never bought into that. I don't yet buy into it that he has decided he's leaving. I think he would stay if they're the defending champions, but given the fact that Dan Gilbert's running the team, they don't really seem to have an empowered GM. We are now 6 days from the trade deadline. They haven't done anything. They just went through their toughest stretch of basketball since he came back. I think they would have to be the defending champions in order for him to come back another year. Now that the NBA season is heating up, I wanted to talk about another podcast we do at Fox Sports, and that's Chris Broussard's In the Zone. Each week, Chris breaks down what's trending in the NBA and the biggest names in the league. Previous guests include Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaq, John Wall, and myself. So if you love the NBA, make sure to subscribe to In the Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
Finally, Blake Griffin made his Pistons debut yesterday. Although, is it me or does it basically look like he's still wearing a Clippers uniform? It's like the same thing. Like identical. Blake had 24 points, 10 boards, 5 dimes, and a 104-102 win over the Grizzlies. And here he is talking about it after the game.
I wanted to just come out and play hard, being very limited in my knowledge of our offense. I thought Coach Van Gundy did a great job of, just putting in 5 things that we could go to, and we ran them to death, but they worked, and everybody just played hard. I thought Aaron Gray was a real just playing hard.
They won the game on 5 plays, over and over and over and over again. How do you think Blake looked in his first game with the Pistons?
Similar to how he looked the last few weeks with the Clippers. Now over his last 10 games, he's averaged 24, 10, and 5. Blake, this year, when he's been healthy, he's played 34 games now, I think. He's given you 22, 7, and 5. Only 6 guys in the league are doing that. It's LeBron, it's Russ. Some of the best players in basketball. Blake is still, he's not a superstar to me anymore. Maybe marketability he is, but play he's not. But he's still a really good player, and he played like it. The big question, obviously, is with the $170 million, 5 years or 4.5 years left on his deal, his health, but he immediately becomes the best player on the Pistons and one of the 6 best players in the whole Eastern Conference.
Well, that's your point. It's the East. This team, or Detroit in the West, would be what the Clippers are or were with him. But in the East, I think going forward, maybe not this year, but going forward, they could be a top 4 team in the East. And I think, look, Blake Griffin has become underrated. His passing, and you saw it last night, he is a playmaker. And we used to see it when Chris Paul would sit out and be injured. Blake would handle the ball more, bring it up court, get guys involved.
I know there was something though about this story about Blake in Oklahoma City. That there was there was a story that Blake was offered for Paul George.
Yes.
And that the Thunder turned it down. And that was something you wanted to comment on. I know.
Look, I for today's NBA, I think Paul George is probably slightly better. Slightly, just for today's style of play, because he can get out and guard on the perimeter. He's a better 3-point shooter and all that. But they're in the same level.
Right, they're close.
They're on the same level. I would have done the trade if I was OKC. And here's why. Right now, I would have done it because Blake is locked up. You got Blake for at least 4.5 more years. Paul George might stay next year, but that doesn't guarantee he's going to stay another 4 years.
Well, so my read into it, we're similar page, was the fact that OKC didn't do this trade when they have Russ locked in, when they tells me they fully believe Paul George is coming back for at least 1 more year. If they thought Paul George, if they were hearing from his people or within the organization, Paul George is leaving after this season, I think they have to make that move because OKC hasn't been a free agent destination. The fact that they didn't make that move tells me, I think, that Sam Presti believes they have Paul George.
Or they don't trust that he could stay on the court.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's the thing, too. Yeah, he is injury prone. And again, you probably doesn't mean you're going to win a title with Blake. But remember, he's from Oklahoma. It's about getting the fans involved. The only way I don't do that move is if I sit down with Russ as the best player on the team and say, look, we got this offer. What do you think? If Russ is adamantly against it, even after I explain, look, Paul might leave.
Yep.
We got Blake for 4 years. And Russ was, no, let's go with what we got. I can convince Paul to stay. Then I wouldn't have done it.
All right, wild ending to the Thunder's-Nuggets game. First, the aforementioned Paul George hits a 3 to tie it with 2 seconds to go. What about George? Second, Gary Harris hits a 3 at the buzzer to win the game. And then Russell Westbrook runs into a fan on the court. Well, he didn't really run into him, but the fan was right there, and he kind of shoved him. Can't really blame him. He didn't really know what the fan was going to do. Chris, what do you do in a situation like that?
Look, I have no problem with what Russ did, and I think the league should not fine him. You know, when somebody comes up to you unexpected, a fan on the court, and it looks like he was, riding, he was talking to Russ, he was talking about we beat y'all or whatever he was saying, then you just react naturally, and I think your natural instinct is to get off me, get away from me. So I have no problem with what Russ did. The bigger problem is with the security in Denver.
Yeah.
How do you even get on the court?
Listen, that fan and the NBA are lucky Russ didn't punch him.
Yeah.
And if Russ had punched him, the guy's trespassing. The guy, I used to live in Texas. I think you can shoot a guy for that there. And in most states, I'm pretty sure you're allowed to. Listen, man, that was a big guy in his face, in his workspace. It is very clear. I know in the NBA, one of the best things about the NBA, one of the coolest things is how close the fans can get. But you got to treat that actual court like an electric fence. You cannot go on there. And to get in Russ's face right after an emotional, tough loss, and again, I want to mention this, that's a big dude. Like, that guy seemed to be as tall as Russ. Russ is 6'3".
He was bigger,
and
though.
He's obviously not in, I'll say, as good physical peak condition as Russ. Like, this could have turned really ugly because of what the fan did.
If Russ had punched him, and like you said, maybe it's justified, the league would have had to fine him.
100%.
You would have had to.
100%.
Look, your business depends on the fans. Even though you could have sat down with Russ and explained, look, I understand it, but for perception, public relations, we have got to fine you, maybe suspend your game, whatever.
I get what your face is saying, Nick, but you can't hit a guy. You could like, that was even a tad bit extreme for me. Like, nobody was going to let that escalate. There were
what
people
do you mean nobody's going to let that? The guy could have a weapon. What are you talking about?
You can't punch him in that unless he comes at you more aggressively.
It was taunting at that point.
You could the push I'm fine with. If he would have hauled off and punched the dude,
man,
again,
you are in the peak
him.
of emotion and physical competition right after.
I get it.
You see a guy run up on you that's your size. Like, I applaud Russ for showing restraint, but I would not be criticizing him this morning had he knocked the guy out.
I wouldn't necessarily be criticizing him. I would understand. I'm just saying
but
the
he
league
faced discipline
would
from the
have
league.
to discipline him because your fans need to see that.
I'm Jenna Wolf, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long.